Welcome to Obscured Reality with Mark and Stephanie. From UFO sightings to the lost city of Atlantis, from alien encounters to the living dead, each episode will leave you questioning reality. If you're ready to explore the eerie, tune in to Obscured Reality, where mysteries come alive.
Can I say this? This
Yeah.
is when we have unintended consequences or unintended results that come from the best of intentions. What if we
No
told the
time is
public?
too late to correct it.
What if we told the public that, and all of a sudden we had a nationwide panic of, oh shit, our food is contaminated with
That's
radiation?
what I was thinking actually not
Well,
too long
You know,
ago. Like,
yeah, and I do not disagree with that at all. However, at some point, we're going to get to the point where they're going to have to start telling more truth than lies. If they'd been doing it all along, you'd have none of the problems. So you could start doing that. You're going to have the issue to say, look, we
they're going to
didn't tell
push that
you
envelope
this
as
is
far as
why.
possible.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. We need the meat. We're doing it. We're not going to let you consume unsafe levels of radiation if it's even present. But that's why I said, because I knew where you were fucking going with that.
I'm that
And
predictable.
nothing against you, but I mean, I think the same thing. But there's no better time than now to start telling the goddamn truth if you want to get it back to a better place.
And
And
you
with
can
these
answer that.
conspiracy theory nuts, you're going to create more of a separation, which is good because now you can better weed that crap out.
I think two things. The government has always let people. I go back to Jesse Ventura, but let people, some of these out there conspiracy theorists, they've let them incriminate themselves with crazy by
Yeah.
just by coming up with, like, flat Earth people. If you debate a flat Earth people, and I've seen scientists do it. It's not you don't even need to debate them. Just let them.
Yeah, just let them talk.
They're going to give them enough rope to hang themselves. But I would also say that if you're the government, you can come out and say, before people panic, and say, wait a minute. Radiation, we knew we shouldn't have been doing that, and how much is in our food. They could come out and say, well, statistically less than 1% is stuff that we have to destroy because it has high contamination of this. The majority of it still goes through testing out, and they could walk people through that, assuming that that it wouldn't cause an uproar, and it wouldn't cause. I know that's one of the things that
You're going to have to deal with that at some point. So just start. The sooner you start, the better you are in the long run. The longer you wait, the worse it is.
They could just be like, you put a little radioactive box to your face multiple times a day. Chill the fuck out.
That's a good. Yeah. That's
you
a good
microwave your food. Chill the fuck out.
Not to mention your ear pods sitting in your ears right next to your brain.
Not
Who
to
knows,
mention
right?
the fact that we just naturally produce radiation. The world naturally produces radiation.
Yeah,
that's a good point. That's what the individual that debunked all the things that he was the guy that got punched by Buzz Aldrin, or that wanted him to swear on a Bible. So this guy.
Yeah.
He's you talk about somebody that speaks things as if they're factual, and there's been empirical research done on them. And this guy takes about 3 minutes on YouTube to debunk every single thing he says about radiation and the Van Allen radiation belts. And obviously the guy had an idea, and he took it and went with it, and nobody cared enough to research it. But with this, I would say that if it, I know there's so many things. They could do the same thing with aliens. Hey, we're not losing soldiers left and right to alien violence. What did the Tic Tac? If it was an alien craft, just say, why not just say, okay, yeah, it was, and it was of no significance to us or to anyone else. And I think, again, we go back to, maybe they want China to know, maybe they don't want Russia to know that to capitalize on something. And I just, whether it's Occam's razor or whether it's just the reality and practicality of things, I don't see why keeping a secret like that would. I see why maybe in the 70s, or maybe if we're 20 years removed from the bomb, because people still have issues with why we did that.
I think it'd be a little more acceptable to come out now and start telling the truth on that versus back then. People might worry a little more because they knew these tests were being done. I'm sure plenty of people saw some of them big clouds go up, so I had asked a question, how do they obtain the cattle? And that led into why don't they just do it in a more secluded spot on the ranch? Why doesn't the rancher have a spot? I mean, they got the barns, they got places they could do it, right?
Right?
Um,
Yeah.
and if I'm going to play, if we're going to play devil's advocate with a question like that, I think it's only fair to play devil's advocate against that question as well, which is, well, why send all that shit out to do the testing to take the needed items from the cow when they are most likely doing this with specialized tools that they can take with them, and just send a couple guys out wherever the cow is. Forget trying to get them over to the ranch house and the barn and all that. Just take them out in the field. We're out in the middle of nowhere. We'll anesthetize it, do whatever they do to knock it out, kill it, whatever, and then do what they need to do right there, and you're done. Bag up the rubber gloves and stuff, and take with you what
Yeah.
you extracted from the cow. So both ways, kind of, it makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe they do. Maybe we just are seeing a fraction of. Maybe that's usually the protocol, and the times that they can't do it, or the times that something happens where somebody's hunting and sees them in this, or
Right.
somebody comes upon them, or something happens. I mean, that might be something that they do. I do know that it's not just all what the cow consumes, and they're testing reproductive organs, and they're testing how it
Mhm.
would, it affects humans in that
Which
area.
makes which those things make total sense. Testing for radiation in cows or farm animals that are feeding off the land.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. And the other thing that makes sense with that is, because there's a lot of theories, and I think Stephanie, I think you and I've talked about this in an episode before. Just some theories into cattle mutilations, and how are they doing this without spilling blood and this and that, and we've heard about most of it's coagulating. Come on. But you hear these ideas that they're taking it to a different spot, whoever it is that's doing this, and then bringing it back and dumping it around the same area. And we came up with some ideas on that could half-ass make sense. But it would also make sense as to why you wouldn't see things like helicopters doing this, because I would expect, if this is without the rancher's knowledge, the quickest way. I mean, it depends on the ranch. I think of ranch, I think of tons of acres, but I just think of a big squared off property, and it's not like that. There's hills,
Right.
so why not just fly a helicopter in with a little saddle on it? You get the guy out,
I,
you
and
anesthetize the thing, put it in the saddle, blah blah blah. But it's a lot of work. But my point is, it makes sense why some of these ideas you hear about, why people never actually see this stuff happening.
and I thought that that's
Because
the
they're
way.
going to the
Yeah,
rancher.
I thought that's the way it was. But it's really. I think if there would be those people who, if they saw helicopters come in, then automatically they would go to, um, the same, whether you're talking about chemtrails or whether you're talking about, I mean, they would go to, oh, they're,
Yeah.
I mean, just look at what they, at Skinwalker Ranch, they're in a flight path. And yet every time they see a helicopter, it's black, and it's black ops trying to run a misinformation program.
Right.
And so I think some of it would just be the fact that it might be easier. These are good questions, and I'm going to ask him. And he's such a good sport. I mean, he doesn't really, like I said, he doesn't care whether I believe him or not. He was more embarrassed that he had to do kind of take that hiatus from doing cool work, as
Yeah.
we call it.
Cool.
And so when you're out, and as far as dumping the cattle, I think they just leave it. I do know if it's contaminated and what, but not just the cattle, but any animals that are contaminated with. I mean, I saw World War Z. All right, if you're contaminated with an illness, then the zombies won't eat you. So but the same philosophy is it for any, if they have radiation contamination, then it will keep the other animals away, the way I've learned it, or the way that it's explained. Whether that's an
Well,
actual fact or not, I
and
don't
that
know.
went right into my next question, which is, why don't they just dispose of the cows that they're doing this with? I mean, they're taking what, I mean, the way we've always heard of cattle mutilations, they're just finding like one at a time, right? In sporadic different areas across the country. So if you think it's one per each ranch they go to, why don't the people testing dispose of or take the cow to a place on the ranch where um, it's not going to be stumbled upon by the public? Or why doesn't the rancher do that? I don't know that it necessarily really matters, but in a way, nowadays it kind of does, because people are coming across them and saying, "Oh, look,
Everyone
surgical
has a
precision. Their
phone with a camera in it.
testicles and a penis
Yeah.
have been removed. Reproductive organs from inside have been removed. Tongue's been removed." Well, stop the shit. But then again, yeah, let's let the crazies keep talking, because it throws everyone off. But
I
then
wouldn't
again,
know.
you wouldn't. This isn't something you need to hide either.
Um, yeah, I would. To that, I would say the only thing I disagree with on that is that something you need to hide if the you you understand how mass like or mass hysterical mass the word I'm looking for it would
Hysteria.
yeah hysteria. Thank you. You think as a Def Leppard fan, I would know that. So you would you know how the public um, if they would see that you're testing for radiation. I mean that causes panic in a lot of people, and so at that point you could
Yeah.
wade them into it all you want, and you could try to save them and bring them out of it. But once you there's some key words there once you use, and I would say if it's aliens, why are they taking one cattle here and there? Um, if they have to keep doing it, I mean, why not harvest?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think either way, they're good questions, and I would be interested in knowing from a rancher from a who actually has participated in this. If it's true, I'm sure that at some point somebody comes across this and hears this. If it's not true, then then you know what are the possibilities outside of? Are there any possibilities? Because
Yeah.
when
Well,
somebody
just think, if you have a couple ranchers that do come out and say, "No, this ain't true. This was never being done on my property." You also have to remember they're not going to every single one. They're
right,
going to areas where they know from, like, those maps we saw, where they've tested and they know where this fallout is gone. They're going to go to ranches in those areas and others, but they're not going to every single one.
yeah, and these are questions I'll ask him, and if he again, I prompted a lot of this, and he's never been one to. Uh, he's just not. To him, he was kind of shocked that I was even interested in it. And but again, I
Well,
do know that there's things that have happened that that I have asked Dad about that I've said, why not come out and come clean about it? It's the same reason when a UFO lands in Roswell, allegedly, they print the story the next day and then they retract it and say it was
yeah,
a balloon, a weather
yeah,
balloon. And so maybe, they have so little faith in the public, they think that, somebody mentioned something. I mean, look at COVID. Look what, I mean, it caused people, just watch a video of some of these people flipping out on other people for
yeah.
not wearing a mask when uh,
And then look
so
at some of these
I
people
got
wearing a
called a
mask in their car, and
communist.
they're the only ones in their car on a desolate highway.
Well, I love the ones where the politicians are slamming people for not wearing them, and then you'll see them at a baseball game without one on,
Oh yeah.
sitting right beside of other people. And I do have a question before.
Well, well,
Go ahead.
well was this what you were talking about earlier? Paranormal, that type of stuff?
Yes.
Okay, hang on one sec. We'll get there, because I'm done with questions on cattle mutilation unless you guys have anything else on cattle mutilation. But I do have one comment that came up with a lot of the details you said that this guy's told you. And this really calls something into question for me now regarding Skinwalker Ranch. We know there's been an episode of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch where um, the cows, I remember these guys were all sitting at the table right outside of the house. They were sitting outside doing their talk, and something was going on, and all of a sudden they heard, all the cows starting to move around, and they looked and they were all going this one direction away from an area, but there's this one cow that was already away from the herd, and this thing was just acting dumb and like just weird. And later, it turns out they're claiming cattle mutilation, blah 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 blah. So it really calls that into question for me as well, because as of now I still trust Brandon Fugel. He's come out publicly, he said, I don't get paid from the show. I told them this is part of the deal. I don't want your money for it. I'm paying for this stuff, because this is legit, want it to be legit, and I don't want you to embellish things on the show and all this stuff. So, think about that. Anybody listening, I mean, it really calls some of that stuff into question as well, I think, you know?
Um, so my thoughts on that. If you've ever seen the video of the turkeys that are walking around in a circle, of a dead cat. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they have their
Okay,
own little like funeral
yeah.
for this poor cat. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
was
it's
sad.
one will follow the other, and then they'll get to the point where they don't break that, and it's just one big circle, and they just keep going around and around.
Turkeys are
And
also
there's
fucking retarded. Sorry, stupid.
yeah, um, the cattle will also do that as far as all of them running away from something. Maybe one doesn't. When there's a snake, um,
Right.
at least the ones
Of
that I
course.
have been around.
Yeah, and that's herd mentality. One hears it and starts running. The
Yeah,
others panic and go, "We're going with you." I mean,
what I
hey,
yeah
there's safety in numbers.
what I don't believe is when they say something like, "We couldn't find the cattle. We came and they were all stuffed in this one trailer on top of one another." And okay, that's what they're saying. But we also know what else they've said about the Dynabeavers and the Skinwalkers and the portals and then I so Brandon Fugel, I believe he's sincere when it comes to he doesn't want to make money off of it. He wants to get to the truth. And if they're telling us that maybe there's something in the ground that is causing this, it's radioactive, we can. That's not far fetched. I mean, we can.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
far from believing that. So I think when it comes to that, what I have a problem with is when he, like with David Platt, when he intentionally misleads somebody saying that we have countless uh, cases where, and then he'll go into X, Y, and Z. And like Stephen Greenstreet, he said, "Can you please send me your best information?" And it was a
Right.
picture of two what looked to be orbs that were. There's no. I mean, how do we get from to the
Well,
dire wolves and to the
yeah.
things that he was told? Now, I've also heard Robert Bigelow say that they did see things, and Travis this Travis
Yeah.
guy has really disappointed me. But he claims
Yeah.
that stuff has gone home with him, and he has taken stuff home from the ranch as far as attachments and these beings and whatnot. He's also
Okay, wannabe
involved
Zach
in
Bagans. Fuck.
yeah, yeah. He's also I don't I think he is so smart that he thinks that everyone is beneath him intellectually,
Hmm.
and because of that, I mean,
So
he
I
put
don't get
together.
that from him too much. Maybe at times, but I don't get a lot of that from him like I do other people.
So he worked on a task force with the government,
Yep, that was
and
a
he
big
also
issue.
yeah, there were some other things that he has gone on to the George and somebody's show
Yep.
that he's claimed, and for him to for him to jump from this might be we should send up a rocket to there's a portal there. Um, that is such a stretch, and maybe in his mind, in his educated mind, that doesn't seem like far fetched. But um, I just I go back to if there's things behaving differently. Um, if I have no doubt he got sick whenever they were digging, and maybe some radiation poisoning that he cleared up at the hospital. These are practical things that could happen.
Yep.
But what I don't, it's when they start trying to lead us into these other stories that I know Robert Bigelow has said were true that weren't true that there's no proof of. And
Well,
it's
and that's
maybe
the
it's the age of him. He's told it for 25, 30 years.
yeah,
Um,
he's also never released the info from their alleged studies that they did there, so we don't know if any of that's true, not true, and all you have is these people's words that the couple of people that have worked there that have come out during the Bigelow times, and again, PFEs, proof, facts, evidence. If you're not going to provide it or you can't provide it, then your word is
the way I understood it was that the scientists were they finally had to have a sit down and say what we're not there's nothing to study what are you wanting us to study, and that's why it closed down. He closed it down 5 years into it or into the research, because when you're getting $22 million from the government
man.
to study this over a 5 year period, there needs to be some type of results. And
Well, there was some crazy ass stories that came out of the Bigelow era there, including something allegedly invisible, almost visible, like blowing the door open on a trailer and coming in. I mean, and that's the thing. They'll produce some of those stories, but they won't produce any evidence.
right,
And you're not recording any of this bullshit. Come on,
right,
where
right,
you have
and you
no
would
data.
yeah, with a $22 million budget, and with all, I mean, we see all the security measures they take. There's security cameras every square foot of that property. They're not going to have something on video, at least to indicate that we don't know what it is. We can't see it. We see the door blow open, and we
Yeah.
don't know. So at least they could give us some type of. But again, it's what I hear are stories being told one way, and then the big thing for me is that the first, the Sherman family that owned it for 60 years,
Yeah, they had
the
nothing.
nothing, not a single one,
Yeah.
um, and then you find out that the Myers family, when they purchased it, he was already trying to post or to publish UFO stories, and Robert Bigelow reads about one of these stories that got published in a small paper that he has to have the ranch, and
Yeah,
the
this
guy
guy just
stayed,
made
and
bank.
yeah, and the guy stayed on as a ranch hand, as like in charge of,
Mhm.
because he knew what all happened and where all the stuff was. Yet if he stayed on, he obviously couldn't show him anything, because again, we don't have any proof. Or you would think if something were there,
Yeah.
at least take a picture, video it, something. All these cameras
Anything.
that they've invested in,
Well, you'd have
and
more of a history of it too.
yeah,
You'd have data coming out from Bigelow as well as before.
it's just
But
anecdotal.
yeah,
When Brandon Fugel talks about the Native Americans putting bladders on the fence to keep the spirits out,
yeah,
I don't doubt that, but that doesn't, you know, that doesn't. We also have a Native American that said she was kidnapped and raped by Bigfoot and had a baby, had a Bigfoot baby. So it doesn't mean that it happened. And so I think that from listening to people who have been there, they just talk about it being strange, but they talk about the human behavior,
yeah, yeah.
and and it seems like they just keep going to people wanting it to be real and wanting it, and they're vested in it. I think Brandon Fugel is I don't know him, but I think from everything, he's not come out and flat out lied, but in keeping the you know I can understand if you're going to go into the kitchen and say this is where this specifically happened, and come
Right,
to
right.
Stephen Greenstreet says it's not where it happened. It happened in the other room. That's a logical mistake. I mean, you can make that
Of
mistake,
course.
maybe,
Yeah.
um, but it's far
Well,
from portals and
Jesus Christ.
all this other stuff that so
yeah.
Portals.
Well, I mean, so Skinwalker Ranch itself is definitely another show. It just made me think of that because they obviously had that on there with and they're not pushing too hard on the weirdness of it, but it's just something to call into question because obviously what you've said from your friend, that's something that makes perfect sense, whereas everything else doesn't. So
right.
we'll definitely save Skinwalker for another time because I mean that's like multi-part stuff
Yeah.
right there. But you said earlier on you had a couple questions, paranormal and something else. I don't know, but I'm
Um,
very curious to hear your questions.
so paranormal, and I specifically speak to Stephanie at this, not because she's but because I want to know if two things. I want to know if, number one, if women are more, not susceptible, but more open to the idea in the way that we have described kids as being able to see things. And I'll tell you why I
I
asked
was
this.
just talking about that the other day about the kids.
See, minds think alike. Um,
I'll tell you a story off air, Jared. Two stories, quick ones. Go right along those lines. It's weird.
if and Stephanie knows what I'm talking about when I was just referring to this video on YouTube. As much as I tell people not to research a 7-minute video on YouTube, it still seems to be how you come aware of things before you look into it. And so there's a woman that's a hospice nurse that talks about the dying process, and the woman that was dying, and the noises and gurgling. But they
Hmm.
also bring up an elderly. He's Oriental, but he's speaking. If you saw this, he's speaking to his. He keeps saying "mama," and he's smiling, and you can see he's obviously, like, she's trying to talk to him, and he's talking to somebody that's not there right before he passes away, and he's referring to his mom. He keeps saying "mama," and he's smiling, and he says something that I couldn't understand. But so if it is the fact that when we're old enough to know better, that we close our minds to some of this stuff. then that's what maybe that explains why kids or animals or even the elderly right before they pass will see things, or it appears that they're seeing things. And
Mm.
my question with that is that um, I don't remember when I was one if I saw things, but I do know that it doesn't. It still. Have you had any experiences, Stephanie, that would um, that would make not actual 100% solid concrete, but the way I described being at Gettysburg, the way I described that ominous feeling of there's something there that makes the hair stand up in it. It
Oh,
could be that
yeah.
because I'm there, if something happens, then I automatically go to, well, there's a
Mm.
lot of dead people that were killed here, or a lot of people that were killed here during the Civil War, and as a
Mm.
result, my own self fulfilling prophecy takes me to, well, maybe it's the ghost looking at me, and it just makes, and then I start feeding off of that
Mm.
psychologically. Or tell me about your experience with that.
So I actually have been to a battlefield down in Kentucky. It was a pretty big one. It was actually the battle for a bridge that was being fought over from the north and the south, and it literally was like the artery. Like if the north got it, the south was cut the fuck off type thing. Uh, and I did feel the same, like almost exhilaration of being there, knowing the history. But I think honestly that might be where the goosebumps come in, is especially for people like us, we're very into history and get very emotional about things like that.
That
So
was my
maybe
second
you're,
question. Go ahead.
yes, maybe almost empathic. Like I feel like in situations like that, it's more of a holy shit, I'm standing in history type connection. I don't like, maybe not so much of a ghost, like a ghost is watching me, but like more of a spiritual connection on like a a different plane.
I,
It's really
I
hard to explain.
I completely understand. I
Okay,
completely
cool, cool,
understand
cool, cool.
because I that my contention is that if that's the case, then I should be able to take you to a battlefield that you didn't know was a battlefield, and you would sail without knowing, having previous knowledge of it. If you had the same uh, reactions and
Mhm.
whatnot, then there might be something to it. But because you already know that you're going somewhere where
Yeah,
people were slaughtered, it's the same thing in walking into if you buy a house where somebody's committed suicide, or a family's been murdered, or
yeah.
was used as a satanic ritual. It might be a nice Victorian house that can be fixed up, but would you already have this knowledge going in, then it changes things.
So actually, the house I used to live in was an old Victorian back before I moved out where I am now. I lived on the first floor in one of, and so it was split into three apartments. The second floor was all one apartment, and the first floor was two. I had the larger of the two, and I also just happened to have the door to the basement. When
Oh,
I
those
tell
are always
you,
the worst. I hate
to,
basements.
I
The going down to the basement.
it's so creepy in that
Yeah.
fucking basement. And it's like a typical Michigan basement where shit just is not completely finished. Funny
Right.
enough, I found out later on, someone who lived in that house back in the 70s, it actually was a furnished basement at one point, and I guess apparently they
Hmm.
ripped it all out, which is really weird because it never looks like it's been furnished. But there's a feeling down there when you get past the stairs and you go into the room to the left. There is a feeling of like, get the fuck out, like
Which makes me
anger,
think, is it just
rage.
an ominous feeling because now you're not thinking this, but you're underground, so you're surrounded by four walls,
It's never
and then
bothered me
just
before.
dirt. Well, but I mean, you have a different sound dampening environment with all that versus four walls out in the open
I
air
grew up in a
above
basement.
ground.
My
You
fucking
know,
child playroom was a basement. So like there's that. But also at the same time though, so this is gonna sound so fucking stupid, but in my brain, I was like, just push a door up against, push a chair up against the door, keep the ghosts in.
Mhm.
But there were times where the power would go out because it would just get really hot, and the system couldn't handle it. So we'd have rolling brownouts, and during that time, it honestly, that's when the house got fucking scary because it almost felt like that presence from the basement was released, and they would stand in my bedroom doorway and stare at me. That I literally I would go outside and like sit in my car and wait for the power to turn back on 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I didn't care.
Wow.
Scared the
It
shit out
also
of
makes
me.
me wonder if maybe different atmospheric conditions, different weather types play into that,
I
you
moved
know?
upstairs, didn't have an issue.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I,
no, like I have actually caught like sounds of like footsteps upstairs. Mark, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Whether I can find that recording or not, good luck to
I have
myself.
it. I have it somewhere.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. So, like, because I like to record myself when I sleep because I have this really funny habit of talking in my sleep, and
okay.
not like in a video, but like audibly record.
Jared's mind is going
Yeah.
somewhere else.
I
Yeah,
regret
no,
asking this question. I'm joking.
not that type of cam girl.
Oh, that's
No,
funny.
no, I didn't mean like that. I just meant it's odd that somebody, but
Yeah, well,
maybe
I
it's
mean,
not.
I used to like literally have conversations with my ex in my sleep, and so like,
Oh wow.
yeah, no,
Wow.
so I found it amusing because some of the shit that I supposedly would say was just off kilter and off the wall, and I found it funny. So, but that's how I ended up catching the footsteps because once I broke up with dude, I still kept recording myself because I would have funny conversations with myself when I was sleeping, and I caught footsteps, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Because like I've never felt like I was truly alone upstairs, but at the same time, it never felt like it was the same presence from downstairs. It was just very much like a "Hey, roomie" type thing. Like never bothered by it, never like
Threatened by it
felt,
or anything like
yeah,
that.
it never,
Yeah.
like, okay, it showed itself once when it turned on a Christmas ornament in the other room. Don't, Mark.
What?
That was really, I thought you were giving funny
You're
face.
talking. I am looking for that audio.
Okay.
Um. So you say it showed itself once.
Well, I mean,
Um.
in the way of like a sound, because I had just brought home a box of Christmas stuff that my parents have tossed on to me because they're currently going through that stage in life where they're getting rid of all of my shit and they're just tossing it on top of me. It's you laugh,
I know
you
the
know.
exact.
Yeah,
It's not
so
funny.
I got my Christmas ornaments that I didn't want, and one of them just happens to be this little cat that would like go dee 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 dee. It would go through like 4 or 5 different songs before it would repeat itself, and it was just like little clips, but it was always in that really annoying sound. It has one of those switches that are on off, like it's very clearly on and off. I'm sitting in my where my studio at the time was on the other side of my house. I fucking hear this thing go off on the other side of my house, and I'm like, oh hell no. So I go over there. I open the box, which at first I thought cat was sitting on the box or getting into it. No, top of the box wasn't caved in at all. So I open the box. I start digging out all the stuff on top of this stupid ornament, and I look at it and it's switched off.
Could I thought you were going to tell me there were no batteries in it? Could it be if the batteries were dying occasionally?
I haven't heard it since.
Mm,
Haven't
that's
heard
eerie.
it since. Yeah, no, that fucker never came out of the box after that. I set my Christmas tree and everything else came out, but it stayed in the box because I am now scared of it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that
What's
was like,
in the box?
I'm gonna mail it to you, Mark. I'm gonna give it to your daughter, and it's gonna be her
I'll take it.
favorite Christmas.
I'll set it up in here.
I love it. But yeah, no, that was the only time where I've had something where I was just like, what the fuck? That and like the footsteps, but I wasn't awake for that.
You know,
But yeah, no, I've had some experiences, like even as a child I've had experiences, more as a child actually, but once I moved out of that house they kind of stopped.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I moved into a house that was a new built instead of an older one, and I feel like it just didn't have a chance for someone to become attached to it yet, like a former
Right,
owner.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yee.
That answers my question.
Sorry, that was
Because
a
I've
long
never.
answer.
No. And I know you have more. All I needed was just the one.
Sorry.
When I was in, and this is a true story, and it's very very quick because nothing panned out. But
that's
I
what the
wanted
liars
to.
always say. This is a true
Yeah,
story.
this is a true story. 75 minutes later, we're talking about inbreeding and incest, and um,
Oh,
Pedal
um,
faster, I hear banjos.
yeah. I When I was in high school, I wanted to. I don't know where I saw this, but I saw it somewhere, and I tried everything I could do to get an attachment from a succubus, because from what I understood of it, it was a female entity that would come
hmm
over top of you while you were sleeping, and it was a how can I say it? It was a sexual experience um, until afterwards when you realized it was actual demon. Now
yeah.
we can joke about, well, that happens every time you go out to the bar and stay till 3 in the morning. You think you're hooking up, and you finally realize that, oh my gosh, how drunk was I? But the fact is, I really wanted, I really sought this thing out, and
Mm.
um, and I sought out like um, when I found out about this, I mean, I just figured there was somewhere you could go and request it, and okay, we'll be at your house on Thursday night at 3 in the morning. Just be ready. And but after that, I started hearing things in my closet that were no,
Oh,
I didn't go. I've never even touched a Ouija board outside of taking one into evidence at one point. I've never, and I don't believe in a lot of that, but
Mm.
I don't want to tempt. I'll just leave well enough alone. Let's put it that way.
yeah. Don't tempt
And
fate.
so,
Yeah.
I kept hearing things in my closet, and I would shut the door and lock it. It was a walk-in closet, a short walk-in, but it was a walk-in closet, so it had a door with a lock, and I would lock it at night. And the next morning when I would get up, it would be open. And then I started thinking we weren't allowed to sleep with our doors shut and locked in case there was a fire or something where Dad had to get in, and so that was a no-no. But he told me to do this, and so that I would be confirmed, or I would be satisfied that because he there's an explanation for it somewhere or another, and I thought it was just the draft when the air conditioner would kick on and pull the door open, and then I started hearing other things in there to the point where nothing ever scared me until I came home one day and my mom handed me something, and I had been gone at basketball camp, so I'd been gone for a week. Came home, she hands me this letter, and she said, "In case you don't think your dad cares, um, just know this." And it was a letter he had written to whatever, it was basically, "Hey, I don't know who you are, what you want, but leave my son alone." And he sat in the closet, and he actually slept in the closet with
Hmm.
a sleeping bag. She said, which it was large enough to be able to do that, um, and so she indicated that he was worried about it, but he wouldn't ever let me know that. And so she said her main purpose was, "Hey, I just want you to know he's taking this. He's not
Mm.
taking this as you're just goofing around. He's taking this serious." And
Yeah.
she brought a friend of hers over who claimed to be. Now I'm getting way off, but this is the end of it. She brought a friend over who claimed to be um, a I don't know if it's a proper term, a medium, or somebody that that had that that could
Psychic
sense and feel.
abilities.
Yeah, somewhat. And when we
Mm.
start talking about that, I always they lose me. But she walked up to mom took her through the house, didn't tell her anything, just showing her the house, and they got to my room, and she wouldn't come in the room. She said she felt like the hair on her arm stood up and felt like there was an animal that had been abused in that room. That's the
Hmm.
extent of any paranormal anything. You know, I wanted to have an ink or a succubus. That was a Freudian slip there. I wanted to have a succubus because I thought the way I saw it was, oh, there's this hot chick that just floats over top of you, and it's just a wonderful experience, which it is not from what from the stories or from the I don't believe in any of it to begin with. But when you're 16 years old,
Yeah, you
um,
try anything.
yeah. So I'm glad you said that. So that was
God.
Well,
my
no, I said
experience, my
you
limited
will.
experience. Yeah, I should have asked for 3 succubus.
Yeah,
What would that be? Succubi?
Talk about it.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Well,
doesn't
it
sound good either.
depends.
Yeah, that. But I
I
jokingly say
just
that
got
to say
that.
this is that that's the only time I've ever, anytime I would talk to my dad's parents or like my step grandpa or
Mm.
my aunt or my grandmother, they grew up in eastern Kentucky back when during the Depression, but
Oh
they have all
my.
kinds of stories, and
Oh
none of
yeah.
them, I just once they
Oof.
started telling stories, I just I tuned them out because I thought they were just that, they were just folklore,
Hmm.
No, Appalachia
and
is a very scary place.
Very heavy with this topic.
yeah,
Yes.
well,
Goblins,
some of it
weird
is the
things.
remoteness. I can tell you
The
this:
feral people.
the feral people. We've talked about that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Mm.
Um, but the feral people are harmless. It's not like you can go hike on the Appalachian Trail and
Yeah,
there's
but
people that
they're
chase you
also
down
very
and
scary because like I I've seen videos of like people seeing some of like the kids who are really like curious, but like they're covered in mud. They're very wild looking. So of course it's terrifying for people. So I can understand where like a lot of the stories would come from. Yes, I'm sure they're,
I
you know, wonderful, like, well, in their own
yeah.
little way, they're wonderful
Well,
people
to me
and
they're yeah. To
but
me they're harmless
yeah.
because I've grown up, but I've honestly never seen a feral person like to
Mm,
the extent that we have stories on on the internet or that
mm,
um we've talked about to the extent that I've seen anything the blue, the methyl blue,
mm.
the and then there are inbred. I mean, it's not just the Whitakers just happen to be, and the country has taken to them, and rightfully so. They deserve that. But it's nice to see that people have, the compassion and and because it's heartbreaking to find out that people were just going down there to make fun of them or to see if it was
It's
real
not
and
their fault they were born that
right.
way.
Right. And when you're that far removed, I can tell you this, the whistling in the woods in the Appalachia is no different than any other woods in the country or
Mm.
in on the planet. I mean, it's not like we have our own unique set um, of spooky stuff that is nowhere else. So if you go out in the woods and whistle, um, you've not automatically called in all the creatures to come and you've
Haunt
not just
you.
challenged them all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I heard that only once before, but a lot of these things are just they're just stories. They're just
Mm.
like everything
Yeah.
else I've said.
Mm.
That said, you go out in the woods at night, you by yourself, you start hearing things,
Oh,
and
it's scary alone. Yeah.
yeah, I'll make sure I have a gun on me. So there's a reason for that, and you, humans are more likely to do something than something paranormal or something, you know. Um, and the last thing is that's what I've heard from some that they felt like that people might be seeing what they think is Sasquatch or Bigfoot when it actually is somebody that is a mountain man that lives out in the woods
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
Could be.
like the Continental Divide is a 1980s HBO show with John Belushi, but it still harkens back to
Belushi.
that to where it there's always for me there's always an explanation for something until there's not, and when there's not, that's when either I haven't looked into it far enough or um, last thing I just watched the video. There's an animal. I don't know if it's I think it's a bird. Anyway, it says top 5 scariest bird sounds, and one of them sounds like a baby crying. You would think it. And matter of fact, I don't think it's. I think it is a baby crying, and they just dubbed it over what they said this bird was. It's that, and it sounds like so when people are in the woods and say they hear this, and most of them were in Australia, most of them were, but there. I mean, there's some some scary sound. I told you about the cranes that
Yeah.
their mating calls and
Ooh,
anyhow.
Well,
shoe bill
a few
cranes
weeks
are scary as well. But
a
Shoot, I
few
think yeah.
few weeks ago we had I heard this bird. It was the weirdest sound, and I looked up. It was a crow. It is not a noise I've ever heard a crow make, and it was really weird. It
are we
was
sure it
so
wasn't a
weird.
raven?
It was a crow, and it was so weird that
Nevermore.
like a week later, my neighbor, we were talking, and he's like, "Hey, did you hear that crow?" He saw it too. I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, I thought the same thing. Like, I've never heard a crow make that noise. It's like something was wrong with the jugular. Something was different with this one. But it's all it was. But it's different animals make different noises.
Yeah.
Some animals make different noises sometimes.
And
And
my father-in-law was big on that. He said, unless you've heard some of these things in the woods, and like I said, he has never even. Matter of fact, he thought it was funny that I was asking him about a Bigfoot, especially when you find out. Oh, something to tell you real quick. This past weekend in West Virginia, we had a Bigfoot symposium in Sutton, and I found out about it yesterday from a buddy of mine who went to it, and he said there's going to be one this coming weekend, in Ohio, right outside of Columbus, which is 2 hours from me. So
and you're going.
yeah, I would not tell anybody.
Cool.
Don't let the internet know that. But yeah, I
This will
secretly
probably come
hope I'll
out
show up
after
and they'll
you've
have
gone,
something.
so
I wouldn't mind going. Just entertainment, if nothing else. But curiosity. So
Yeah, there's I haven't been to one since I was in college, or right out after college when I told you I had spoke very briefly to Ron Moorhead, who wouldn't.
mhm.
But I'm going there for the excitement of it, not to debate anything with
He's like,
anyone.
I'm going there for the chicks.
Yeah. Have you seen
Well,
some of these?
no. Well, I will tell you a very quick, never told before, closest to paranormal, I could ever get, which I don't think it is, but I don't know. This is like a 2-minute story of that, and then we'll part with a joke. Um, so you reminded me when you were both talking about this stuff, paranormal. I forgot. There was about 8, 9 years ago, a girl I was seeing very briefly, like a few weeks maybe, till she told me she didn't drive because she had too many DUIs and she took taxis to work every day. I'm like, should have told me on the first date.
wow, that's very
So
expensive. Okay.
we go out drinking one night, bar by her house, where apartment where she lived. And so we walked back to her house, and I just stayed the night there. It was easier. No one drive home.
The
The
walk should
city
have been
I'm
the
Yeah,
red
in.
you don't have to
flag.
explain to us.
Well, the city I'm in, I was in. Cops are notorious for not being nice. Not that I would expect to get away with something, but like I didn't want to chance anything, right?
Mm.
So I remember we're laying there in bed, and she's sleeping. I'm, like we're going to sleep, not asleep yet, and dude, I heard this noise from her closet, which was like at the foot of the bed. You could walk between the wall, the closet, and the foot of the bed. There was plenty of space, but that's where the closet was. And I heard this noise that I shit you not. I swear to God came from this closet from inside her room. And I say that because on the opposite side of that wall, I believe was her roommate's room. I don't know that her roommate was home at the time or not. I don't recall, but it was the weirdest thing. And I don't think I sat up, but I was definitely boom, head up, attentive, and shutting up and listening. And I immediately said to her, I'm like, "Did you hear that?" And she's like, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah." The way she said it was like, "No big deal." And it came out, "Yeah, I've heard it before," and she thought it was weird, but it almost seemed like she was just like catering to me as well. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm not saying this is anything crazy, but I shit you not, I heard something from right there. She
Mm.
heard it, but as close as I've come to, if you want to say paranormal, but uh, we'll leave this episode with a joke.
Before
And
we,
second time tonight,
if I can show you
sure,
one thing real quick, you had asked me
yeah,
the last time about research, and so
oh yeah,
I have two. This is what I want to show you because I just want to show you the difference. So
yep,
these two books. So when I did the Annalise Michelle, when I got when I was familiar with it. So this book right here came out in 1981, and it's The Exorcism of Annalise Michelle. It's by
Okay.
Felice. Felice.
Felicitas D. Goodman.
Yeah, and I can tell you this is written from a standpoint of a believer who claims this all was real, or
Hmm.
who that's the way the story of the book. Now, when you this book here is probably the most in depth, and this is written by a father, a Catholic priest, who is also a former law enforcement. His name's John Duffy. He's on Facebook, but he does a
That sounds
podcast.
familiar.
He does someone's podcast on um, that is that is 5 hours long, and there is nothing he doesn't include in there. But he's a doctor. He went to medical school, and he's a doctor now. He was a law enforcement, and then he got into his military time. He goes into all this, and he walks through step by step. Um, Pretty much the same things that we discussed and that I explained to you how whether it's the truth behind demonic possessions, and then in this case and why this didn't happen, and then the mindset of the Exorcist movie, and the father or the priest, the two priests that were convicted on this, and he
Yeah.
goes so far more in depth into it that there are so many other things. It's sad because there are so many times where this young lady could have been saved. They
Oh yeah.
chained
Yeah.
her. They actually, the mom, Stephanie mentioned this. The mom was so abusive. She chained her to the bed because they didn't want her coming up off the bed, feeling like it was a
Hmm.
entity that was causing her to levitate, in which it was just her jumping around. And um, the chains, the marks. He goes into the psychopathy and the medical things he saw with the marks on her arms, the ligature marks that they had. They tied her at one point to the chair and then to the bed, and all the things that happened that shouldn't have happened. And it's so when I this now this didn't come out till 2011. By that time, I'd already done that, but it's right
Yeah.
along the same lines. Um, and he mentions that he gives you all the names of demonic possession or by demons that never walked
Okay.
the earth, and not Hitler and Cain and Nero and people. And so anyhow, you had asked me about that, and what I would tell you is that when I found something I was interested in, the first thing I did was search for the if there were any referee journals on it or books written on it, and I looked at the novels and from what standpoint they were, and then I started to dig in more. And as far as people researching things on YouTube, you can go to like if Mick West debunks or Mick West,
Right.
you can look at debunk or the truth about, and then you'll get the videos that actually go into depth, like Stephanie Harlow. She did a 4 hour, 3 part video that it. I think she was basically reading from this book because but none of it is. It's just sad that it was able to in a westernized country, which Germany was in the 70s. It's sad that this was able to happen, and again, so you had asked me about that, and I wanted to be. I never answered your question, but how do you get into researching some of these things? A lot of them for me is the same concept, the same thing. Whether you're talking about an alien or a Bigfoot or something, it's just the extraordinary claims, and you can have a couple things that you live by, and where's the proof? Where's this? And then you start looking into some of the stories that just until we have something. Like I said, James Fox, love him, great documentary, great movie maker, but until he, everything that he shows us was, if I can just get it the next time.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
David Grush, I can't tell you that here, or Lou Elizondo. So anyhow, I'm sorry to interrupt. You can leave
Yeah.
this with a joke, and I just wanted
When
you to see
you
that. Go ahead.
when you think about it, text me the names of those two books. I'm gonna see if they have them electronically. I have,
Roger that.
have a lot of time to read right now, so maybe I will. Well, let's part with a joke. Hopefully, Jared, sounds like you might be willing to come on again. I definitely,
Yeah,
I was thinking of doing Dodie tonight. I'm thinking next time because that's going to be that'll be
yeah.
the same length. So, um, we'll part with a joke here. This is the second time tonight. Jared has made me think of a joke. You were talking about when you were talking with Stephanie. You were kind of going down the route of I think it was exorcisms in a way. I don't think you said that word, but when you guys were talking about paranormal, Made me think of a joke. I never think of these ones. I always think of the old ones I knew in elementary school, and they suck now. If an exorcism is getting the ghost out of the priest, getting the ghost out of the person, a reverse exorcism would be getting the priest out of the boy.
There's a
And
lot of
with-
truth to that joke.
And with that said, that's Obscured Reality. We'll be back again soon with Jared. Good night.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to check back with us often for new episodes. Feel free to drop a comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Obscured Reality.